Chosen one. You are not here by accident. You did not click this message by chance. This moment has been arranged by divine appointment, guided by a hidden identity that has been stirring within you long before you had words for it. Something has always set you apart. And today, heaven is pulling back the veil. Chosen one. There have been signs following you since childhood, unexplainable sensitivities, deep emotional awareness, sudden separations, unusual battles and moments of isolation that never made sense to others. Those were not flaws, they were markers. You were never ordinary, you were being prepared. What felt like loss was alignment. What felt like breaking was initiation. Anointed one, you are standing at the edge of a revelation about who you truly are, a rare calling, a set-apart nature, a purpose that required refinement before release. Scripture confirms this truth. Before you were formed, you were known just as it is written in Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5. You were designed intentionally, wonderfully made, as declared in Psalm 139, verse 14. You are part of a chosen generation, called out as 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9 proclaims. This message is not here to comfort your flesh. It is here to awaken your spirit. God does not break what he does not plan to use. Prepare your heart. What you are about to hear will shift how you see your pain, your past, and your purpose, because the breaking was never your end. It was your calling being activated. Chosen one. There is a reason your life has never followed the simple path. There is a reason comfort has always been interrupted, relationships have shifted suddenly, and seasons you thought would last forever ended without warning. This is not chaos, this is design. Heaven does not waste pain, and God does not break what he does not intend to use. What you have called isolation has been instruction. What you have called loss has been alignment. What you have called breaking has been preparation. I say this not as theory, but as truth forged in fire, because many of us who carry this calling have felt the same pattern repeat again and again. Just when things seemed stable, God allowed them to shake, and each time something deeper inside us was awakened. Anointed. One brokenness is not God's rejection of you, it is his invitation into depth. When God begins to prepare a man or woman for real impact, he first strips away what is unnecessary. Not because it's sinful, but because it's insufficient for where you are going. I've seen this play out in ordinary life. Jobs that looked perfect on paper, but left your spirit empty. Relationships that felt validating but quietly drained your discernment. Environments where you were celebrated outwardly but slowly disconnected inwardly from your true self. And when God removed them, it felt brutal. It felt unfair. But only later did clarity come. Only later did you realize how much of your identity had been wrapped around things that could not carry your destiny. Chosen. One brokenness awakens what truly matters. It sharpens your spiritual senses. It exposes what was once hidden beneath routine and noise. Before the breaking, many of us lived busy but shallow lives, productive but disconnected, surrounded but unseen. God allows disruption because he refuses to let his chosen ones sleep through their calling. Like Abram, who was not given a detailed map, but a command to separate you, were asked to walk away before you could walk forward. Genesis chapter 12 shows us that purpose often begins with departure, and that same pattern shows up today when God asks you to leave familiarity, not knowing what comes next, but knowing you cannot stay where you are. I remember a season when everything external looked fine, yet inside I felt restless. I prayed for peace, but instead things unraveled. Conversations grew cold. Opportunities vanished. And in the quiet that followed, God began to speak more clearly than he ever had before. That's the secret many don't understand. God often removes the noise so you can finally hear him. The wilderness is not punishment. It is precision. It is where heaven recalibrates your heart. The world shouts, but God whispers, and you only hear the whisper when the volume of everything else is turned down. Chosen one, brokenness also protects you. It disconnects you from what was quietly destroying you. Some attachments look nourishing but are actually toxic to your spirit. Some doors feel like blessings but are rooted in compromise. And because God loves you too much to let infection spread, he cuts. Not in anger, but in mercy. John chapter 15 speaks of pruning fruitful branches, not dead ones. That means if God is removing things from your life, it is not because you are failing, but because you are growing. The pain of separation is often the evidence of value. Think about Jonah. What looked like judgment was actually transportation. The storm, the fish, the darkness, it all preserved his life while breaking his rebellion. In the same way, what you lost may have saved you from a future you were never meant to live. You don't always recognize rescue while you're bleeding, but healing almost always begins there. The blessing is not in what you held on to, it is in what you survived. Anointed one, brokenness also refines your hearing. When ego quiets, obedience grows. Moses did not hear God in Pharaoh's palace, but in the wilderness tending sheep forgotten by history. It was there, emptied of status, strength, and self-reliance, that he encountered the burning bush. That same principle applies to you. When applause faded and silence filled the room, God was not absent. He was closer than ever. Intimacy is born in surrender, not performance. And here is the revelation many miss: brokenness destroys the illusion of self-sufficiency. Pride can disguise itself as competence, but God's power is not released through strength. It flows through surrender. As it is written in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9, his power is made perfect in weakness. Until a chosen one accepts limitation, grace remains theoretical. When you finally say, I cannot do this without you, heaven responds. Chosen one. If you are in a season where everything feels stripped down, uncertain and quiet, do not despise it. This is not the end of you. This is the threshold. What is being broken is not your spirit, but the shell that kept your true calling sealed. And what is emerging will carry more weight than anything you have known before. Chosen one. As we continue, let your spirit stay open, because what you are walking through is not ordinary pain, it is divine restructuring. Every chosen vessel in Scripture and in history has walked through this same narrow place where God breaks what is brittle so he can reveal what is eternal. And if you look closely at your own life, you will notice the same pattern unfolding. Seasons where friendships suddenly shifted. Times when the people you depended on drifted away without explanation. Moments when the dreams you held shattered right when you thought they were beginning to bloom. These experiences were not random. They were spiritual markers. Heaven was removing what could not carry the weight of your calling, even when your heart wanted to hold on. Anointed one, brokenness is not only about awakening, it is also about purification. God uses it to disconnect you from attachments that were quietly draining your spirit. I've walked through this myself. There were relationships I begged God to preserve, thinking they were necessary for my future. But every time I clung tighter, things became more painful. It wasn't until much later that I realized those connections were limiting who I was becoming. Some people loved who I used to be, not who I was growing into. Some environments celebrated my potential, but suffocated my evolution. And because God saw the trajectory of my life more clearly than I could, He allowed separation for my protection. The same is true for you. Some losses are actually lifelines. And here is something few ever recognize. God will often let what feels good fall apart, so He can rescue you from what would have eventually poisoned your purpose. Think about the job that once felt secure but suddenly ended, or the relationship that held your heart but was slowly dimming your identity, or the opportunity that looked divine but was rooted in compromise. When these things were taken from you, it felt like devastation, but spiritually it was preservation. God is a master surgeon. He removes only what threatens the health of your destiny. You may not always understand His cuts, but you will always benefit from His healing. Chosen one. This breaking is also teaching you to hear God with clarity. When everything is stripped away, the noise stops, and the divine whisper becomes unmistakable. Before brokenness, many of us confuse our own desires with God's voice. But after brokenness, something shifts. Your spirit becomes sensitive, your discernment becomes sharp, and your appetite for truth becomes unshakable. There is something about silence that shapes a chosen vessel. Something about isolation that refines the ear of the heart. Moses didn't hear God in the palace because he was too crowded with identity, expectation, and noise. But in the wilderness, caring for sheep under an open sky, he encountered a voice that changed history. And like Moses, you too have been led into seasons where it felt like everything familiar was stripped away so that you could finally recognize the sound of heaven. This sensitivity is not a burden, it is a badge of calling. Many chosen ones grow up feeling too sensitive, too aware, or too emotional, not realizing these qualities were early indicators of divine design. You were created to perceive beyond the surface, to feel spiritual shifts. Others overlook, to notice when something is off, even when no one else sees it. That wasn't weakness, it was wiring, and your breaking is bringing that wiring back to life. Anointed one, brokenness also destroys the illusion of self-sufficiency. For many of us, strength became our identity because we had no choice. We learned to survive through effort, planning, grit, and resilience. But heaven does not operate through human strength. Heaven flows through yielded vessels. When life brings you to a place where your usual strategies no longer work, where your strength runs out, where your understanding collapses, that is the moment God steps in and reveals Himself as the true source. I've lived this personally. There were moments I thought I was capable, prepared, and strong enough to handle what was in front of me. But then came circumstances I could not fix, doors I could not force open, questions I could not answer. It was in those exact moments that the presence of God became undeniable. My breaking became my unveiling. Chosen one. Your strength was never the goal, surrender was. When the alabaster box was broken, the fragrance that had been hidden filled the room. In the same way, what God placed inside you, the gifts, the compassion, the wisdom, the depth, the spiritual sensitivity, is often sealed behind layers of protection, fear, or identity formed by past wounds. So God breaks the exterior, not to destroy you but to release you. The aroma of your purpose can only be released through surrender, and now you are beginning to see it. The breaking is not diminishing you. It is revealing you. Everything that is falling apart is making space for what heaven has been waiting to build. Everything that feels heavy is shaping the vessel that will carry greater weight. and everything that looks like loss is positioning you for the multiplication God has already prepared. Chosen. 1. Breathe. You are not being undone, you are being rebuilt. Chosen. 1. As we move deeper into this revelation, let your heart stay soft, because the breaking God allows is not random, it is targeted, intentional, and deeply prophetic. You may not have realized it at the time, but the moments that shattered you were the very moments heaven was shaping you. Every unanswered question, every betrayal, every closed door, every silent night, they were chisels in the hands of a master sculptor. And though it felt like pieces of your life were being stripped away, what was actually happening was refinement. God was revealing the you that had been buried beneath years of survival expectation and performance. This is why many chosen ones walk through seasons of identity confusion, not because they are lost, but because they are being revealed, anointed. One brokenness brings you face to face with the truth of who you are and who you are not. Jacob experienced this when he wrestled with God. He entered the battle with an old identity, but he left with a new name, not because he became someone different, but because who he truly was finally came to the surface. And for many of us, the breaking has served the same purpose. It peeled away the masks we wore to be accepted. It exposed the false identities we carried to feel worthy. It stripped the layers we built to appear strong, and in the rawness of that moment, when everything familiar seemed to fall away, something sacred happened. Your true identity began to emerge. I've walked through this myself. There was a season where everything I thought defined me simply dissolved. Roles shifted, dreams dried up. People who once affirmed me no longer recognized me, and for a while I questioned everything. Who am I without what I do? Who am I without the people I've leaned on? Who am I when everything is stripped away? But in that deep questioning, I discovered something profound. Identity is not built in success. It's revealed in surrender. The version of me that God needed was not the polished one, but the yielded one. And I suspect, chosen one, the same is happening for you. Brokenness forces a confrontation with truth. It reveals your divine DNA. It awakens the spiritual inheritance that has been dormant inside you. So many chosen ones have spent years feeling different, not realizing that difference was destiny signaling you from within. You felt things deeply discerned, things quietly carried burdens that weren't yours and stood out even when you tried to blend in. Those were not personality quirks, they were signs of your calling, and as breaking removes the noise, you begin to see what heaven has been coding into your spirit since birth. Chosen one, brokenness also trains you. Not in the way the world trains, through skill and intellect, but through fire and compassion. Before David ever held a crown, he held a cave. Before he ever sat on a throne, he sat in darkness, weeping and wondering if God had forgotten him. But what looked like delay was actually development. God was training David's hands to fight, yes, but more importantly, he was training his heart to feel. You cannot lead what you do not love, and you cannot love deeply until you have suffered deeply. That is why your broken season has given you compassion for wounds you've never spoken aloud. It has given you eyes to see those who cry in silence. It has given you a heart that refuses to judge quickly. These are not weaknesses, they are weapons. Compassion is a weapon. Empathy is a weapon. Sensitivity is a weapon, and God has sharpened them in you through your breaking. Anointed one. The battles you've endured were never meant to destroy you. They were meant to equip you. I remember times when I felt like I was fighting alone, surrounded by problems, overwhelmed by emotions, pressed on every side. but those very seasons made me dangerous to darkness. They taught me to seek God, not casually but desperately. They taught me stability in chaos, endurance in exhaustion, worship in warfare, and I believe your battles have done the same. You may not see it yet, but every tear has trained you. Every disappointment has built you. Every night you held on when everything in you wanted to let go. Those nights forged spiritual strength no classroom could teach. And brokenness also separates you from what is carnal, so you can embrace what is called. This is why certain circles no longer fit, why certain conversations feel draining, why old patterns frustrate your spirit. The breaking has expanded you, and anything that kept you small can no longer remain. Gideon's army was reduced from 32,000 to 300 because God wasn't looking for crowds, he was looking for purity. And similarly, God is not shrinking your life, he is sanctifying it. He is removing noise so you can recognize his voice. He is pruning relationships so you can carry revelation. He is reducing distractions so you can walk in anointing. Chosen one, do not mourn what God has removed. If it left, it was not meant to go where you are going. Your breaking is creating space, not for emptiness, but for elevation. Not for loss, but for legacy. Not for defeat, but for divine multiplication. You are being positioned for something far greater than what you had before the breaking ever began. Chosen one. As we continue, feel the weight of this truth settling into your spirit. What God allows to break in you is always connected to what he plans to build through you. Nothing in your story has been wasted. Not the heartbreak that left you breathless. Not the disappointment that made you question your worth. Not the season where everything familiar fell apart. Every moment has been woven into a divine tapestry that you are only now beginning to see from heaven's perspective. And if you have felt scattered, confused, or stretched beyond your limits, understand this: you are standing in the middle of holy construction. God is rebuilding you from the inside out. Anointed one, brokenness exposes the cracks in your foundation so that God can reinforce them with glory. It reveals where you relied on self instead of source, where you leaned on people instead of purpose, where you found identity in earthly things instead of eternal truth. Many chosen ones experience this through cycles. Just when it feels like they've regained stability, another shaking comes. At first, it feels like failure, but spiritually, it is refinement. Think of a house that must be strengthened for a greater weight. The builder shakes the structure, finds the weaknesses, strips them down, and reconstructs them so that the whole can hold more. In the same way, God shakes you not to destroy you, but to prepare you for the greater mantle resting on your life. I've seen this play out personally. There were seasons where God seemed to repeatedly take me back to the same types of wounds: rejection, abandonment, insecurity. For a long time I wondered why I kept facing the same emotional storms. But eventually, God revealed the truth. These were not cycles of defeat, but layers of healing. Every breaking brought me deeper, closer to the root, closer to the version of me that carried true strength. And chosen one, the same is unfolding in your story. The breaking you feel is not recycling pain, it is uprooting it. God is preparing you to stand in places your old wounds could not enter. Brokenness also reveals the hidden motives of those around you. As God elevates you from within, he exposes who can walk with you and who cannot. This is why in your breaking season, certain people suddenly changed. Some distanced themselves. Others became intimidated by the light you didn't even know you carried. Others still tried to take advantage of your vulnerability. But all of it served a purpose. When the pressure increases, truth surfaces. Not everyone is meant to witness your rise. Some connections serve their season, but not your destiny. And God, in His mercy, allowed the breaking to reveal what words could not. Anointed One, brokenness is also heaven's way of softening your heart for greater compassion. Before God multiplies your influence, He ensures your heart is shaped to carry it. This is why chosen ones rarely grow up in ease. They taste the bitterness of life early, not to harm them, but to deepen them. They feel the ache of loneliness, the sting of being misunderstood, the heavy weight of responsibility long before they know how to carry it. And though it feels unjust, it is preparation. A deep well of compassion can only be dug through lived experience. And God uses your breaking to carve out capacity within you, capacity to love, to lead, to serve, to intercede. I recall moments when I sat alone with tears streaming, feeling like no one could possibly understand the depth of what I was facing. Yet, those very moments became the soil where empathy grew. Today, when someone shares their pain, I don't offer empty phrases or quick fixes. I offer presence, understanding and love forged through my own valleys. Chosen one. Your breaking is creating the same depth in you. You are being shaped into someone who can carry others not from ego, but from experience. Heaven trusts those who have been crushed, because crushed vessels carry purer oil. Brokenness also clarifies your calling. When everything falls away, what remains is what was eternal all along. This is why in your lowest moments you often feel the strongest pull toward God, toward purpose, toward a destiny larger than your circumstances. Pain refocuses you. It strips distractions. It sharpens your desires. And in those silent spaces, God whispers who you truly are. Sometimes it takes losing everything you leaned on to discover everything heaven placed within you. Anointed one. The calling on your life is not small. The weight you feel is not imagined. The spiritual sensitivity you carry is not random. Your dreams, your discernment, your deep inner knowing, these are fingerprints of divine purpose, and brokenness awakens them. It stirs the slumbering giant in your spirit. It reminds you that you were never meant for mediocre living or shallow purpose. You were designed for impact beyond what your natural eyes can see. And now we arrive at one of the most misunderstood truths of spiritual transformation. God breaks you to release what has been locked inside you. Just as the seed must break open underground before it can rise, your spirit had to break open before destiny could bloom. If God had elevated you too early, the unbroken parts of you would have sabotaged what He intended to bless you with. But now, after the breaking, after the surrender, after the stripping away, you are finally becoming the vessel heaven can trust. Chosen one. What is emerging from you now is not the wounded version of yourself, it is the awakened one. The version molded by fire, softened by compassion, strengthened by surrender. You are stepping into alignment with who you were always meant to be. Chosen one. As we move forward, understand this: brokenness is not just something you go through, it is something that transforms you from the inside out. Every divine calling carries a weight, and before heaven places that weight upon your shoulders, God strengthens the vessel through breaking. Not to weaken you, but to deepen you. Not to punish you, but to anchor you. And the transformation that comes from this process is unlike anything the world can offer. You begin to notice subtle shifts within yourself, the way your spirit becomes more alert, the way your discernment sharpens, the way peace begins to replace panic, even when circumstances remain uncertain. These shifts are signs that God is rebuilding you with holy intention. one of the greatest revelations of breaking is discovering that purpose is born from pressure. Many chosen individuals go through life wondering why everything seems heavier for them emotionally, spiritually, mentally. Why they feel things more deeply than others. Why situations that barely touch others seem to hit their soul with full force. This is because chosen vessels are designed with deeper spiritual chambers. They carry a greater sensitivity, not as a flaw, but as a requirement. You must feel deeply to lead deeply. You must break deeply to heal deeply. You must surrender deeply to be trusted deeply. God has been preparing you for influence that requires a heart shaped not by ease, but by empathy. I've seen this unfold in my own journey. There were times when I felt like my sensitivity was a curse, when I wished I could shut off my emotions and simply move through life without absorbing the atmosphere around me. But as the breaking continued, I realized something profound. Sensitivity is not weakness. It is spiritual sight. It is the ability to perceive what the eyes cannot see, to feel what the surface does not reveal, to sense when something is off, even when words say otherwise. Many chosen ones carry this spiritual intuitive knowing, the kind that made you feel older than your age, even when you were young. And God uses the breaking season to refine this gift until it becomes wisdom instead of confusion. Chosen one. Brokenness is also the place where pride quietly dies. Not the kind of pride that shouts loudly, but the hidden kind, the pride of wanting to control outcomes, the pride of insisting on understanding everything, the pride of relying on your strength instead of God's sovereignty. When life collapses in ways you cannot fix, your spirit learns surrender. Not the forced kind, but the sacred kind, the surrender that says, God, I don't know what you are doing, but I trust who you are. This level of trust is forged only in broken spaces where your strength fails and God's strength takes over. And something beautiful happens here. Humility births authority. Once you stop trying to be your own source, God becomes your supply. Once you stop trying to manufacture outcomes, God releases breakthroughs. Once you stop striving to prove your worth, heaven reveals your identity. Brokenness clears the stage of self so that the glory of God can rest upon you without competition. Anointed one. There is another layer to this transformation. Brokenness awakens purpose. Those who have never been broken move through life on the surface, guided by convenience and circumstance. But those who have been broken carry depth, conviction, and clarity. Think of Jacob again. His limp was not a sign of weakness. It was the mark of encounter. It was the proof that he had wrestled with God and survived. Many chosen ones walk through life with invisible limps, remnants of battles. No one saw wounds, no one understood tears, no one witnessed. But those limps are not liabilities. They are signatures of divine shaping. They remind you that God has touched you, that heaven has marked you, that you are not who you used to be. And it is often after this internal shift that God begins external movement. Suddenly, opportunities arise that were impossible before. Doors open that had been sealed shut. People appear who carry keys to your next season. The reason is simple. Once the vessel is broken and surrendered, God can trust it with greater responsibility. He knows the glory won't go to ego. He knows the calling won't be corrupted by self. He knows the vessel will not seek applause, but obedience. Chosen one, do not underestimate the shift happening within you right now. You may not see the full picture yet, but heaven does. You may not understand why the breaking had to be as deep as it was, but God does. And now something holy is happening. You are becoming aligned with your true identity, the identity that was always there but covered. The identity heaven whispered over you before you even understood spiritual things. The identity that breaking has finally uncovered. I've seen this moment in many lives, the moment when a person realizes that everything they survived was not for destruction, but for definition. And you, chosen one, are standing in that exact moment. You are being shaped into someone who carries spiritual authority, emotional depth, and divine clarity. Someone who will walk into rooms with quiet confidence because you know God rebuilt you. Someone who will speak with weight because your words come from places you've lived, not theories you've learned. Someone who will transform atmospheres because you have been transformed from within. Anointed one. The breaking was not the end, it was the unveiling. Chosen one. As we continue deeper into this sacred unfolding, understand that brokenness is not merely a chapter in your story, it is the forge where God refines the rarest parts of your identity. What you thought was the end of you has actually been the unveiling of you. Every chosen vessel must be shaped in places the world does not see, because the anointing you carry cannot be produced on the surface. It requires pressure, surrender, and a level of transformation that reaches the bones of your spirit. And in this quiet forging, something miraculous begins to happen. You start to recognize the hand of God, not only in your victories, but also in your valleys. The places that once seemed godless suddenly reveal themselves as holy ground. The moments you once resented reveal themselves as turning points. And the wounds you thought disqualified you become the very places where God pours His glory. Anointed one, many of the most powerful lessons of destiny can only be learned through the breaking. You begin to see people differently, not through judgment, but through compassion. You begin to see yourself differently, not through shame, but through grace. You begin to see God differently, not as distant, but as deeply intertwined with every breath you take. Before the breaking, you may have believed you needed to hold everything together. You may have carried the weight of being strong for everyone around you. You may have thought your worth was tied to performance perfection or pleasing others. But brokenness strips those illusions away. It leaves you vulnerable enough for truth to enter, humble enough for healing to begin, and open enough for God to rebuild you in alignment with your true identity, rather than the identity you created for survival. I've lived this revelation personally. There were seasons when I felt like the breaking was unfair, unnecessary, too painful to have purpose. Yet looking back, I see how those were the moments that shaped me into someone I could barely recognize before. When everything external fell apart, what remained was what God had planted internally long before I knew how to nurture it. And this is happening in your life as well. The version of you that is emerging is not the version shaped by trauma, rejection, or expectation. It is the version shaped by truth, the version shaped by divine design, the version shaped by heaven's vision of who you were always meant to be. Chosen one, brokenness also disrupts cycles, not to cause chaos, but to break generational patterns that sought to follow you into your future. Many chosen individuals are called to be cycle breakers, burden bearers, spiritual pioneers within their families. This is why your path has felt heavier than others. You were not just living your life, you were carrying the spiritual weight of what came before you and what will come after you. When God breaks a chosen one, He is not only shaping an individual, He is shifting a bloodline. The healing that starts with you will ripple into generations. The freedom God is birthing in you will silence patterns that tormented your ancestors. The clarity you are gaining will become the inheritance of those who come after you. This is why the breaking felt so deep, because the assignment is so great. Anointed one, with each layer, God breaks away. He reveals a deeper part of your calling. Many chosen ones discover gifts in their breaking seasons: prophetic sensitivity, heightened discernment, creative expression, healing ability, spiritual insight. These abilities often appear when everything else is stripped away, because the noise of life no longer drowns out the whisper of heaven. Your breaking has tuned your spirit to God's frequency. That is why you feel things others overlook. That is why you notice things others dismiss. That is why you sense shifts long before they manifest. These are not coincidences. These are confirmations. Heaven has marked you. And now, as God continues to shape you, He also begins to separate you. Not because you are better than others, but because your calling is different from others. Separation is necessary for elevation. Just like oil cannot mix with water, the anointing on your life will not mix with environments or mindsets that hinder your growth. People who once fit comfortably in your life may suddenly feel distant. Conversations you once participated in may no longer feed your soul. Desires you once had may fade as your spirit awakens to something higher. This separation is not rejection, it is refinement. God is protecting the purity of what He is birthing in you. I've witnessed this in my own walk. There were people I cared about deeply who could no longer accompany me where God was taking me. Not because they were bad, but because our paths diverged. And though the separation was painful, it was purposeful. God was making room for relationships aligned with destiny rather than comfort. And chosen one, the same is unfolding in your life. What is leaving is clearing space for what is coming. What feels like subtraction is actually divine subtraction, the kind that prepares you for multiplication. Anointed. One brokenness also deepens your dependence on God. When everything else fails, when your strength runs dry, when your plans collapse, you begin to lean on God, not as a last resort, but as your first foundation. And in that dependence, something beautiful grows: intimacy. You begin to recognize His presence in moments you once overlooked. You begin to hear His voice in ways you once doubted. You begin to trust His timing even when you cannot trace His hand. This intimacy is not born in ease, it is birthed in surrender. Chosen one. You are not the same person you were before the breaking. You are wiser, stronger, softer, deeper. You have been shaped by the hands of the one who never wastes a wound, and what He is preparing you for will require everything He has developed in you. Chosen one. As we continue into this next unveiling, understand that the breaking you have endured is now shifting into a season of awakening. Something within you has been quietly growing, maturing, strengthening beneath the surface. You may not have seen it, but heaven has. You may have felt only the pain, but God has been watching the emergence. Every time you thought you were falling apart, you were actually falling into alignment with the person you were destined to become. The breaking stripped away illusions, but the awakening is revealing identity, the true identity heaven whispered over you long before the world tried to shape you into something smaller. Anointed one. This awakening is subtle at first. It shows up in moments when you realize you no longer crave what once satisfied you. It appears when conversations that used to excite you now feel empty. It rises when your spirit becomes restless in places you once tolerated. These are signs that your inner world has expanded, and what once fit you spiritually can no longer contain you. When this happens, many chosen ones feel confused, even frustrated, wondering why they feel out of place. But the truth is simple. Spiritual maturity has outgrown old containers. The wineskin of your past can no longer hold the wine God is pouring into you now. I've experienced this transition myself. There was a time when I tried desperately to hold on to old identities, old routines, old versions of myself simply because they were familiar. But familiarity is not destiny. And God began nudging me first, gently, then firmly, to release what no longer served my calling. It felt uncomfortable, even disorienting, but the peace that followed was undeniable. When you honor the shift, heaven honors you. And, chosen one, you are in that very shift. The discomfort is a sign that you are stepping into a greater spiritual frequency. This awakening is also the moment when purpose begins to clarify. Brokenness may have shaken everything, but now your vision sharpens. You begin to see patterns that once confused you. You recognize why certain relationships ended, why certain opportunities collapsed, why certain seasons felt heavy. The fog lifts, and what remains is revelation. You understand that the battles you fought were not punishments, they were preparation. The tears you shed were watering seeds planted in your spirit years ago. The loneliness you endured was actually heaven placing you apart so you could hear your calling without interference. Anointed One. This stage of awakening also carries a powerful truth. God does not break you without planning to multiply you. Before a seed can grow, it must break open in hidden soil. Before oil can flow, the olive must be crushed. Before purpose can rise, the vessel must be emptied. This is why you felt stripped, emptied, undone. God was preparing capacity within you for what He is about to release through you. Many chosen ones are surprised by this stage because after so much breaking, they expect stagnation. Instead, they find acceleration. Suddenly, doors open. Suddenly, clarity comes. Suddenly, assignments appear that match the strength formed in the crushing. I've seen this unfold in my own life. After long seasons of silence, God began opening doors I didn't even knock on. Opportunities that once required striving began flowing with ease. Not because I was more qualified, but because I was more surrendered. That's how divine timing works. When your character catches up to your calling, heaven aligns everything else. And chosen one, you are stepping into that alignment now. This awakening also exposes something crucial. Not everyone can go where God is taking you. Some people were part of your breaking season, but cannot be part of your multiplying season. Some relationships taught you lessons but cannot support your elevation. Some environments birthed survival in you but cannot hold the greatness emerging in you. This is where chosen ones often feel torn, wanting to bring everyone along. But elevation requires separation. Purpose demands discernment. And the anointing on your life will require boundaries that protect what God has entrusted to you. Anointed One, your awakening is not only inward, it is outward. The world around you will begin to respond differently. People will see a strength in you they never noticed. Your presence will carry weight. Your words will hold authority. Your atmosphere will shift rooms, not because you are trying to be powerful, but because brokenness has purified your oil. The same places where you once felt invisible will become the places where your voice carries influence. The same spaces where you once felt unworthy will become the spaces where God displays His glory through you. Chosen One. This is the season where you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and begin declaring, "God is preparing something through me." You stop seeing wounds as weaknesses and begin seeing them as wells of wisdom. You stop defining yourself by what broke you and begin defining yourself by what is being birthed in you. Your awakening has begun. Chosen One. As we continue into this moment of revelation, understand that you are now stepping into one of the holiest transitions of your journey, the transition from awakening into assignment. The breaking stripped you, the awakening opened your eyes, but now heaven is positioning you. This phase is delicate, sacred, and often quiet because God is aligning your steps with precision. Nothing is random anymore. Every conversation, every shift in your spirit, every new desire rising within you is connected to your divine assignment. You are no longer being prepared, you are being positioned. Anointed One. You may feel a strange mixture of anticipation and uncertainty in this season. That is not confusion, that is spiritual calibration. Your spirit is tuning itself to a new frequency, one that carries purpose, authority, and divine timing. This is why old habits suddenly feel heavy. This is why old fears no longer have the same grip. This is why you are no longer satisfied with surface-level living. God has awakened a deeper hunger within you, a hunger for truth, for alignment, for what is real, holy, and eternal. And with that hunger comes a new sensitivity. You begin to feel God's direction, even in whispers. You sense when He is pulling you toward something, and you sense just as clearly when He is pulling you away. I've walked through this sacred tension myself. There were times when I felt God calling me forward, but nothing around me looked different. There were no signs, no confirmations, no open doors, just a deep inner knowing that heaven was shifting me. And in that waiting, God taught me something profound. Positioning always happens internally before it happens externally. The heart moves before the feet do. And chosen one, your heart has already moved. That restlessness you feel is not a lack of clarity. It is a sign that you're outgrowing the place you once settled for. You're stepping into spiritual adulthood, where destiny begins to take shape in real, tangible ways. This stage of your journey is also where God begins revealing the connections tied to your assignment. Certain people will enter your life carrying keys, not material keys, but spiritual ones. Keys of wisdom, keys of collaboration, keys of opportunity. These people will not drain you, they will confirm you. They will not compete with your calling, they will complement it. They will speak to the part of you that God is raising, not the part of you that life tried to bury. Pay attention to the ones who activate your purpose simply by being who they are. They are divine alignments, not accidents. At the same time, you will notice another reality unfolding. God will gently or sometimes abruptly remove people who cannot walk with you into this next realm. This is not cruelty, it is protection. The weight of what God is placing on you requires purity of connection. Not perfection, but purity relationships rooted in truth, honor, alignment, and spiritual resonance. Anyone who encourages the old, you cannot be trusted with the new you. Anyone who feeds your fears cannot help you carry your faith. Anyone who diminishes your identity cannot stay connected to your destiny. This pruning is painful, but it is purposeful. You are being shaped for impact. Anointed One. Your assignment also begins to reveal itself in your desires. God speaks through alignment. He shifts your passions. He redirects your interests. He awakens gifts you did not know you had. You may find yourself drawn to something unexpected, something that seems small or insignificant, yet pulls at you with holy gravity. Do not dismiss these stirrings. Destiny often arrives as a whisper before it becomes a roar. What feels like a subtle nudge may be the doorway to your next season. I've experienced this firsthand. There were opportunities I overlooked because they didn't match my expectations of what purpose should look like. But when I finally followed the nudge, instead of my assumptions, I discovered paths I never knew existed, paths that carried peace, provision, and clarity. This is how God works. He leads you into places that your natural mind would never choose, but your spirit instantly recognizes. Chosen. 1. Another important truth emerges in this phase. Your voice begins to carry authority. Not because you are louder, but because you are clearer. Brokenness purified your motives. Awakening sharpened your discernment. Positioning aligns your voice with heaven. When you speak now, it comes from depth, from experience, from spiritual recognition. People will feel the weight of what you say because you are not speaking theory, you are speaking testimony. You have lived what others are only learning. You carry the oil of someone who has survived the fire. And now one more layer unfolds: multiplication. The breaking was never meant to leave you shattered. It was meant to open you. When Jesus broke the bread, it multiplied. When the seed breaks in the soil, it grows. When the vessel breaks before God, the oil flows. Your life is reaching that moment. What felt like fragmentation is becoming distribution. God is going to take what you surrendered, what you lost, what you endured, and use it to bless others in ways you never imagined. Anointed One. Your assignment is not ahead of you, it is rising within you. Chosen. 1. As we come to the end of this message, let your spirit rest in the truth that your breaking has never been a sign of abandonment. It has been the evidence of divine selection. Heaven has been shaping you, refining you, and unveiling the identity that has been written over your life since before you took your first breath. Anointed One. You are stepping into a season where the hidden signs, the quiet markers, and the sacred origins within you will begin to speak louder than your past. I bless you now with clarity, courage, and the strength to walk fully in who you were created to be. May your steps be steady, your spirit awakened, and your purpose undeniable. If this word confirmed something deep within you, share it in the comments so your faith may echo forward. Stay aligned, stay yielded, and stay awake. Heaven is guiding you. Your unveiling has begun.